Okay, good evening, everyone. This side Dr. Abhijeet, and today we are yet on another series of Oracle 90 Days Foundational Life Class for University Exams. And the topic that we are going to cover today or discuss today, it is the Acid-Base Balance Part 1. So over here, we are revising all the important questions, all the important topics in the form of Q&A, that is the question and answer format. Okay. And I will be revising the entire topic in a very crisp, concise, and conceptual manner. So yes, we are rapidly revising all the important, potent questions that have been put up in the last 10 years in the various university exam across India, right? Apart from that, all the potent question, important ones, which I feel that can be asked in your upcoming prof exam, that also I will be covering over here. Yes, and it is beneficial not only for the ones who are going to appear for the prof exams, but also for the ones who are going to appear for the NEET PG or the FMG exam or yeah, the upcoming in my INICET exam, because all important questions we will cover over here as well. Now, guys, you already know this is the like format in which we are going to discuss the today's topic, and we already know the long essay question, basically the 10 marks question. The short essay questions, basically it is 8 or 5 marks, and the short answers, they are 2 or 3 marks question. So I will be discussing the entire topic in the form of these questions, right? I will be discussing the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, the acid-base balance, the bicarbonate buffer, the hemoglobin buffer. I will be discussing the difference between the metabolic and the respiratory acidosis, right? And I will be discussing the pH, the major buffers in the blood. Okay. So that will be the discussion for today's live class. Now, guys, why to choose Oracle, guys? You already know we have the recorded classes for flexible learning, right? Once, if you're not able to watch the live class, which we are doing daily, so you can always go on for the recorded ones, which are available on the app. And you can watch those recorded lectures anytime. Now, coming on to the live classes, guys, we are conducting live classes daily from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. daily on a very like regular basis. Apart from that, we have the practical sessions, guys. The practical sessions are being like recorded over. It's already there on the app, and you can always go on for this before the exams, and you can just watch it multiple times to know yeah, get a clear cut view in your brain for the exams. Apart from that, most of the students ask me, sir, 1 month before the exam, shall we go for the textbooks or something? So over here, I have designed this exam, express exam module in which we cover the entire course under 20 hours. So all the potent questions have been revised thoroughly over here in under 20 hours, and you can just go on for this because it's a game changer, and obviously it can be a sort of like very helpful for you to enhance your examination marks as well. Coming on to the next one, that is the hard copy book set that is available right at your doorstep, right? You can just order from any corner of India, and obviously the notes which we have designed, it will be like available to you. The notes basically that we have curated. They are basically curated in the form of Q&A, keeping in view the important questions, the important topics. Apart from that, guys, we also have included fun zones, riddles, and multiple choice questions. Okay, the repeated topic questions are also being included. All the like answers are curated in the form of points, important subtitles, and every headings will be like there, right? So yes, foundational classes, guys, we have already talked about this because it's like the one for the students. This is for the, like flexible learning. You can always go on for these classes, right? The recorded ones available on the app. We also have the live classes, right? We have the live classes that we are conducting daily between 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And yes, you can also go on for the live classes. Then we have express exam module where we cover each and everything under 20 hours. Okay. We have like one-to-one doubt clearing session also. Like if you have any doubt in any particular subject with respect to any particular topic, you can always book an appointment prior, and you can just go on for these your doubts with the respected faculty. Hard copy book set, I've already told you, right? And we have question bank that is from basic to advanced level. Basic to advanced level. So over here we have like curated the questions like from basic to advanced level, covering the entire questions that have been asked in various university exams, right? We have also included the questions that have been asked in the national exams like INI-CET, NEET PG or FMG exam. And we have also curated, keeping in view the trend of now the medical exam, that is the clinical vignettes. Okay, the expert team along with me has curated this. So you can always go on for this, which is available under each topic, and this will now enhance your practice. So the practical sessions I have already told you. So for the Viva questions and all the practicals, basically you can always go on for the ones which are available on the app. So we have the subscription plan, we have the foundation plan, we have the advanced learning plan, we have the complete learning plan, and we have the ultimate MBBS plan. So you can always go on for the ones which are available, which you can see on the screen. And for additional discounts, you can use my code Dr. Abhijeet 20. Now, question says explain the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation and its role in understanding the acid-base balance. Explain the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation and its role in understanding the acid-base balance. Now, guys, just try to see. So Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, basically it's a mathematical relationship that describes the relation or that discusses the relationship between the pH of a solution to the concentration of its weak acid, right? And its conjugate base, right? So yes. So remember, it is actually the relationship between, if we just want to like short, if we just want to write down, it is the relationship between the pH of solution, very important, pH of the solution, and the concentration of weak acid and its conjugate. Up, we are taking weak acid, so we have to take the conjugate base, okay? And obviously the dissociation constant, or I can simply say the acid dissociation constant. And the acid dissociation constant, remember, it is denoted by pKa. You can just see over here, it is denoted by the pKa. Okay. So basically this equation, what is actually the role? This is very important, guys, in understanding the behavior of buffers. Okay. So yes, this equation is very, very important in understanding the behavior or the role of the buffers. Okay. And acid-base balance in biological system, and particularly we are actually talking about the blood component. We are actually talking about the blood component over here. So over here, if you see, now when I use the term pH, guys, pH basically means the negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration, or I can simply say, guys, over here, pH simply means the measure of acidity or alkalinity of solution, right? Of solution. So it is basically the negative log, the base 10 of H plus concentration. Obviously, it will be deciding the acidity factor and the alkalinity factor as well. Right, pKa basically stands for the dissociation constant, the acid dissociation constant. Basically, this reflects the strength of the acid. It reflects the strength of the acid. Okay. Then we have concentration of the weak acid, right? HA is basically the concentration of the weak acid, right? And A minus, it is the concentration of the conjugate base. So we are taking weak acid with its conjugate base, and we have the dissociation constant, that is pKa, right? Now, guys, what is the HA over here? We say it's the weak acid, HA. Okay, let me just write over here and just explain you the key concepts over here. If we talk about HA, remember guys, it is the weak acid. Okay, it is the weak acid, and obviously it can donate a proton. It can donate a proton. Now, when I say proton, guys, I'm actually talking about the H plus ions. I'm talking about the AH plus ions. Now, if we talk about A minus, guys, right, this is the conjugate base. Now, conjugate base, it is formed when weak acid loses a proton. Weak acid loses a proton. So yes, if we come to, okay, let me just mark like this. If we come to pKa, now you already know it indicates the pH. pH basically means the potence of hydrogen. Okay, potence means Shakti. What we say potence? Yeah, the potence of hydrogen, right? How much power the hydrogen has actually. So that is the potential of hydrogen, the potence of hydrogen. So it indicates the pH at which acid is half dissociated. Half dissociated, meaning the concentrations of HA and A minus are equal. The concentrations of HA and A minus are equal. Okay. So if there is a lower pKa, guys, if there is a lower pKa, always remember that it is a stronger acid. Stronger acid. Basically, we have more dissociation. More dissociation. Now, if there is higher pKa, we have weak acid. Okay, and we have less dissociation. Less dissociation. Now, we already know the buffering action. So basically, this equation, guys, is basically no. Actually, it's helpful to know how the buffers work in the body. Now, when I say buffers, guys, when I say buffers, so buffers basically, yes, it is a solution that resists a change in pH, that resists a change in pH when small amount acid or base is added. So it resists a change in pH when small amount of acid or base is added, right? So yes. Now this is when achieved when the ratio of when I say H minus to HA, right? Or the conjugate base, you already know the conjugate base, that is A minus, and HA. Basically, yes, the acid, it is basically closer to 1. It is basically closer to 1. So basically, which maintains a stable ratio. Okay. Now, if the ratio shifts, guys, right? If the ratio shifts, it can either neutralize the added acids or it can neutralize the added bases, okay, thus stabilizing the pH of the blood. Now, what is the role in acid-base balance? The question says the role in acid-base balance. So basically, it helps in regulating the pH. It helps in regulating the pH. And particularly when I say pH, I'm basically talking about the pH of the blood. I'm basically talking about the pH of the blood. The normal pH of the blood, guys, remember it is 7.35 to 7.45, and that is the standard value that you guys have to remember. 7.35 to 7.45, right? Now, you already know most of the enzymatic functions, okay, or most of the metabolism of the cell or cellular reactions or cellular functions. Basically, they work in optimum pH. And obviously, if the pH is deranged of the blood, the normal capacity of the cell to work normally or to do a very normal function, it will be hampered. And that is guys, like this is like way important. So we have various buffer system. One of the important ones that I wanted to discuss with you, it is the bicarbonate buffer system, and that is how it helps in regulating also. Hmm. Bicarbonate buffer system. Now, the primary buffering, basically they involve, you already know, the carbonic acid, right? And its conjugate base. Yes, that is bicarbonate. Okay, so we have this carbonic acid and we have the conjugate base, that is H2. Okay, let me write like this: bicarbonate, HCO3 minus. Obviously, conjugate base, when it loses an electron, H2CO3, hydrogen will one hydrogen less, it is HCO3 minus. Now, dissociation, dissociation, carbonic acid is as follows. You already know H2CO3 will be broken down to H plus and HCO3 minus, right? So that is something you have to again remember. Again, in this we can just apply the Henderson's Hasselbalch equation. Henderson's Hasselbalch equation can be applied, right? So yes, now this equation basically, okay, you can just write down like log HCO3 minus, right? It is H2CO3. Okay, then we have pH. Okay, so that is like this equation helps us to understand how the ratio of bicarbonate, okay, the bicarbonate to the carbonic acid determines the blood pH, okay, and how it compensates for its changes in acidity or alkalinity. So we have basically respiratory and renal compensations, right? So yes, we have respiratory and renal compensations. And guys, you already know when I say respiratory compensation, it totally means about the lungs. The lungs helps to regulate the pH by exhaling out the carbon dioxide, okay, which lowers the levels of carbonic acid in the blood, thus raising the pH of the blood. If we talk about renal compensation, the kidneys regulate the blood pH basically by adjusting the excretion of H plus ions. and reabsorbing or excreting bicarbonate ions, right? So they help to maintain the acid-base balance, this Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, by um, the maintaining the acid-base balance by the buffering system. Okay. So yes, that is something you have to remember. That was regarding the first question. That is the Henderson's Hasselbalch equation and its role in understanding the acid-base balance. Now coming on to the next question, guys. Coming on to the next question. Describe the bicarbonate buffer system in maintaining the blood pH. Now, now maintaining the pH of the blood, it means that I am talking about the range that is 7.35 to 7.45. That is the normal pH of the blood. pH of the blood, right? Now, this buffer basically helps in maintaining how it works. Now, when I say bicarbonate buffer system, what are the components, guys? What are the components? Components are basically two. We have the carbonic acid and we have the bicarbonate ions. Now, when I say carbonic acid, it is H2O CO3, and bicarbonate, it is HCO3 minus, right? So basically, HCO3 minus acts as a conjugate base, okay? And carbonic acid, it is basically a weak acid, right? Now, how the equilibrium is basically described over here, it is basically by the following reaction, that is reaction CO2 plus H2O will be giving rise to H2CO3, okay, which will again dissociate into H plus and HCO3 minus, right? Now remember, guys, that carbon dioxide basically dissolves in water to form carbonic acid, right? Carbonic acid will again dissociate into hydrogen ions and bicarbonate ions. Now, what is the buffering action over here? If we talk about the buffering action, if the blood becomes too acidic, let us assume if the blood becomes too acidic, it means that we have the lower pH and more H plus. It simply means this acidic means lower pH and more H plus. Now the excess hydrogen, excess H plus will combine with bicarbonate to form carbonic acid. Okay, so what it is doing, it is reducing the concentration of the free H plus, raising the pH to become normal. Okay, raising the pH to become or towards the normal levels. If the blood becomes too alkaline, now you already know alkaline means higher pH and fewer H plus. What will happen? Carbonic acid will dissociate H plus and HCO3 minus. This H plus will be lowering the pH back to the normal level. Okay. So that is something you have to remember over here, how the buffering action takes place. It is also done by the lungs and the kidneys, regulation by lungs and kidneys. Now, when I say lungs, guys, I've already told you CO2 levels in the blood. Basically, they're controlled by the lungs through breathing, right? They are controlled by the lungs through breathing. If CO2 is accumulated, then what will happen? It will combine with water to form carbonic acid, right? So that will actually lower pH, right? Now, to restore the balance, the respiratory system. What will be the lungs doing? The respiratory system increases ventilation. Very, very important. It increases ventilation, okay, to expel more CO2 out of the body. And if CO2 is expelled out of the body, in turn, it will help in reducing the acidity. Reducing the acidity. Now, kidneys actually help maintain the bicarbonate balance by absorbing, or or I can simply say reabsorbing or excreting HCO3 minus as needed. Now, if the blood, let me assume a condition over here, if the blood becomes too acidic, so the kidneys basically they will retain bicarbonate, they will reabsorb bicarbonate. But if it is too basic, okay, then yeah, the blood is too alkaline, the kidneys will excrete bicarbonates. So that is how basically they are being regulated. Okay, that is how basically they are being regulated. So this was regarding the bicarbonate buffer system and how it helps in maintaining the blood pH. Coming on to the next one, write a note on the role of hemoglobin as a buffer. So hemoglobin, basically it is a protein buffer. Firstly, you should know it is a protein responsible for transporting oxygen in the blood. Okay. Now, role of hemoglobin. Basically, the first step that you have to remember, it is the binding of H plus ions. So hemoglobin basically acts as a protein buffer. I have already told you. Basically, it binds with the free H plus ions in the blood. Okay, it binds with the free H plus ions in the blood. When the hemoglobin basically binds to H plus ions, it will reduce free H plus concentration, right? And that is how like it is regulating the blood pH. Now, again, the binding of the hemoglobin to the hydrogen, remember it is influenced by the state of oxygenation. Okay. Oxygenated hemoglobin has a lower affinity, obviously, lower affinity for hydrogen ions, while deoxygenated hemoglobin, it has a higher affinity for them, right? It has a higher affinity for them, right? Secondly, remembers the Bohr's effect. So it describes how the hemoglobin oxygen binding affinity, it is influenced by the pH guys and CO2 level. pH and CO2 levels. Obviously, when the pH decreases, okay, it becomes more acidic, right? Or CO2 level increases, what as in tissues, hemoglobin affinity for binding with the oxygen will automatically decrease. Hemoglobin binding with the oxygen or affinity for oxygen decreases. So what it will do, it will help in prompting the oxygen release. In turn, this promotes the capture of hydrogen ions by deoxygenated hemoglobins, right? It promotes capture of hydrogen ions by deoxygenated hemoglobin, right? Now, this effect is basically very, very important in tissues where metabolic produces carbon dioxide, okay? Um, Including to, okay, if the more carbon dioxide is there, there will be more carbonic acid, H2CO3, okay? And subsequently, hydrogen ions will be there, right? Now, apart from that, The third one that you have to remember, that is the transport of oxygen. Transport of oxygen, and hemoglobin also helps in transporting CO2, actually carbon dioxide. So from tissues back to lungs, from tissues back to lungs. Now, some of the CO2, guys, remember it is carried as carbaminohemoglobin, carbaminohemoglobin, right? Where CO2 directly binds with the hemoglobin, where CO2 directly binds with the hemoglobin. However, most CO2 in the blood, it is basically converted back into the carbonic acid by the enzyme carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic anhydrase, right? And this acid will now again dissociate into H plus and HCO3 minus. So in the tissues, basically as CO2 is transported to the lungs, it dissociates into H plus and like this bicarbonate. Okay. So this hemoglobin buffer basically helps to absorb some of the H plus ions. Okay. Minimizing the drop in the pH of the blood. Okay. So yes. Even in the lungs, guys, if we talk about the regulation in the lungs, basically the hemoglobin binds to oxygen, becoming oxygenated hemoglobin, which reduces the affinity of hydrogen ions. I've already told you. So as a result, hydrogen ions are released and bicarbonates enter into the RBCs. The bicarbonates enter into the RBCs. Now what will happen? They will combine again with those hydrogen ions to form carbonic acid, which is then converted back into CO2, and the CO2 is expelled out during exhalation. So that is something you have to remember about the hemoglobin buffer. Coming on to the next one, the metabolic and respiratory acidosis. Basically, they are both the condition where the blood pH is decreased. Okay, blood pH decreased, it totally means that the blood, it is becoming more acidic. The blood, it is becoming more acidic. Now, when I say metabolic acidosis, remember it occurs when there is an accumulation of acid or there is loss of bicarbonate. And due to this, there is decrease in blood pH. Okay. And primary disturbance obviously can be in the bicarbonate. If there is any disturbance, or the major disturbance can be in the bicarbonate buffer system. Bicarbonate buffer system. Now, what are the causes of metabolic acidosis? Very important. We have diabetic ketoacidosis. What are the causes? Diabetic ketoacidosis. Now, when I say diabetic ketoacidosis, basically we are referring to accumulation of ketones, and ketone bodies are acidic, right? We have lactic acidosis. Lactic acidosis. Basically, there is a buildup of lactic acid due to inadequate oxygen supply to tissues. We have renal failure, where the kidneys cannot excrete the hydrogen ions or they cannot reabsorb the bicarbonate very efficiently, right? Now, there could be solutions where no, or the situations where the bicarbonates are not, is lost from the body. Actually, it's lost. So yes, if the bicarbonate, it is basically lost from the body, it is in situations such as, okay, the very common one, that is the diarrhea, loss of bicarbonate in stool, or renal tubular acidosis, RTA. Renal tubular acidosis. The renal tubular acidosis, and we already know the renal tubular acidosis, there is a defect in the tubules of the kidney to basically reabsorb the bicarbonate. right? Coming on to the next one, that is the respiratory acidosis. No, it is when there is accumulation of CO2 in blood. Accumulation of CO2 in blood. So which will lead to an increase in carbonic acid, that is H2CO3. Now, if there is increase in H2CO3, it will release, there will be a decrease in the blood pH. Okay. So primary disturbance, it is if there is any problem in the gas exchange or if there is any problem in removal of the CO2. Respiratory acidosis, common causes that you can remember, we have COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Now, over here, obviously, the word pulmonary disease, it's inability of the lungs to expel the CO2 out of the body. It can be either in emphysema or chronic bronchitis. Even in cases of the causes can be severe asthma, respiratory depression, okay, obstructive sleep apnea can be one of the cause, right? So that is you have to remember. Coming on to the next part, okay, the normal pH of the blood. So you already know if we talk about pH is a measure of acidity or alkalinity of a solution. Okay, where we are indicating the concentration of hydrogen ions, right? So it is basically range from 0 to 14. So 7, you already know it is neutral, less than 7, acidic, more than 7, it is basic, right? The normal pH in the blood, basically it is 7.35 to 7.45, right? If it is less than 7.35, remember it is acidemia. Blood emia means blood. Okay, blood pH is too low, indicating acidosis. Acidosis. Above 7.35, it is alkalemia. Blood pH is too high, indicating alkalosis. So yes, that is you have to remember. It's a very short answer type of 2 marks question, so you can just remember like this. Major buffers in the blood, I think we have already discussed the very first one, bicarbonate buffer system. We also have protein buffers. Protein buffers. Okay, proteins basically hemoglobin, right? The hemoglobin, phosphate buffer system, phosphate buffer system. So we have different ones which you can just remember. So very short answer, so you can just name the buffers in the blood. The last one, what is the normal bicarbonate to carbonic ratio in the blood? It is 20:1. Okay, it is 20:1, right? So remember, it helps in maintaining the blood pH range from 7.35 to 7.45, right? So yes, basically the bicarbonate acts as a base, the carbonic acid acts as the acid. So basically when I say 20:1, guys, remember 20 means there are 20 parts of bicarbonate and there is 1 part of carbonic acid. Carbonic acid. So it helps to maintain like 7.4, which is slightly alkaline. Slightly alkaline. Okay. So yes, that is regarding this. So this was the topic for today. So these are the various social media handles you can go on for, yeah, for the updates of the next classes. Thank you for your patience and listening me out. Thank you.